I just got back from watching Sonic 3, and honestly, it was an absolute masterpiece. Now, I'm gonna just ramble, give a lot of my thoughts, and I will not be saying anything spoilery until a later section in this video. And for those of you who have seen the movie, feel free to watch that section, but for those of you who have not seen the movie, do not click that section of the video until you've seen it, and if you want to watch my thoughts, just go watch it there. Sonic 3, from a lot of the build-up, had me immediately excited. Now, as you can tell, I'm a bit dripped out right now. You know, I can't look bummy for my guy, Shadow's movie. The theater I went to was packed with people, and I even heard a movie theater worker say that was a lot of people, because obviously movie theaters have been kind of going down the drain over the past few years ever since the COVID pandemic. So seeing so many people get together for one movie showing was really cool. And obviously I've never been to any of the Sonic movie showings before because I've watched them, you know, in retrospect. I kind of fell out of love with the movie going experience as well, but this was insane. It reminded me so much of when I watched Avengers for the first time in theaters for the midnight showing of that. It was just so awesome to be in a room with so many people who were just really invested in the movie, in the characters, the plot, everything. It was great. So without a doubt, if you can go to see this in theaters and you're obviously a Sonic fan or not as much of a Sonic fan, regardless, go to see it in theaters. It was super cool. Definitely worth the price of admission for that, for the group, you know, atmosphere of the movie. But now let's get to the actual movie. You know, Sonic 3 starts off like most of the other Sonic movies, very casual, very carefree, except I'm lying. I'm completely lying to you. I fabricated all that. It starts with the prison island breakout scene with Shadow that we've seen in the trailer so many times, and it was great. I loved how he barely even spoke in the intro. It really gave us this impression that he is menacing and cold, and obviously not that much like Sonic. It gave you that kind of disparity of him not being too similar to him, because Sonic doesn't shut up. So having Shadow be this very cold character, very, you know, unemotive character, which is obviously not true because Shadow is an insanely emotionally driven character, but just not in the same way that Sonic is, was really cool. Then we cut to the family fun gathering scene that we've seen in the trailers with the 3 Team Sonic members racing in the forest. That was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot, and it had a really heartfelt moment with Tom and Sonic talking to one another about the past and being able to, you know, move on from these tragic things that happened to you, which was really sweet. I really enjoyed it, and having it all themed around the idea of this being the anniversary of Sonic arriving to Earth instead of it being his birthday. It's his Earth Day. I thought that was really sweet. It was a nice way to connect us back to the original, you know, moments that made this series what it is. Sonic and Tom. Something I loved was this amazing transition that they did. And then honestly, I don't remember if it's a line that Sonic says or a line that Tom says, but they essentially say, I don't know who I would be if I didn't let that happen. I'd probably be really different. And then it cuts to Shadow alone in the rain in Tokyo, and I was just like, oh, cinema. That's all I felt. It was so good. That little transition just to show, like, you know, they are connected so closely together. It's just like, oh, just because of that one little thing, this is how Shadow became to be who he is. And this is obviously meant to be a sort of allusion to Shadow's connection with Maria, but I'm not going to get into that until later. Now we're in the Tokyo section of the story. Team Sonic is called into Tokyo by Gun in order to stop Shadow, and I don't want to be that guy, but there were a lot of amazing references to Sonic Adventure 2, and some of them did have me go, like, gave me a little cheeky little smile, some of them more than a cheeky little smile. And Sonic says, talk about a low budget flight, no food or movies, I'm out of here, just like the line from City Escape in Sonic Adventure 2. It was awesome. It was really cool. And then when they fall down into the city, Tails, Knuckles, and Sonic do the Sonic Heroes, like, team up pose. It was great. That type of little stuff I really enjoyed. It doesn't really impact the plot in any way. It was just fun, you know. It was fun fan service, and a lot of people really enjoyed that line too in my theater. So it was cool. Now we're in Tokyo. Shadow absolutely bodies Team Sonic absolutely bodies them. This is the moment that we see in the trailer with Knuckles getting cooked, Tails getting cooked, Sonic getting cooked. But Sonic doesn't really understand what it means to be a team. You know, despite the team being called Team Sonic, to him, it's Team Sonic. He says, screw them, I'm going to go after Shadow on my own, where Shadow, riding away on a motorcycle, of course, you know, as perfect as it could be, and with a laser gun. You know, not a gun. That would be kind of crazy. You know, we all know Shadow was packing heat in Shadow the Hedgehog, but this is still made for kids, and they got to change that a little bit. So they gave him a laser gun, still cool, and they have this amazing chase scene throughout Tokyo, which eventually leads to that scene we see in the trailer of them going up Tokyo Tower and clashing with a big old punch. It was awesome. Truly, I kind of wish that scene went a bit longer because I was hooked in that scene. And this is only like 10 to 15 minutes into the movie that we're getting all this crazy action. It was really cool. Then, you know, we get a bit of a lull. We need to figure out what the goal is, how are we going to find Shadow, and then this leads into the introduction of where Shadow was from. So, it's not actually the Space Colony arc. A lot of people wanted it to be Space Colony arc, but they explain a reason why that wouldn't be a good thing later on, which I thought was a very good retcon, but I'm not going to get into that right now. We get into this sort of underground mountain base for Gun, and this is where Gerald worked, and a bunch of the other Gun people worked, and of course, since Gerald was there, Maria was there. And they explain a bunch of stuff about how Shadow was found. So instead of being found through a ring kind of thing like Sonic, he was found inside like this meteorite kind of thing, which honestly gave me a bit of worry. I thought it was Black Doom, and I was like, please God, no. Please no Black Doom. But luckily, he's not mentioned whatsoever. It's a nice little allusion to Shadow being something like Black Doom. The sort of meteor thing that he is in even looks a bit like the Black Comet, which was cool, but luckily Black Doom is not, you know, a major plot point in this. He easily could be going forward. That would be interesting, but I do think it would have been a bit overwhelming to have Shadow's origin kind of put underneath the whole Black Doom stuff. I think it would have been very isolating for a lot of non-fan members of the audience, so I'm glad they did not go that way, at least for now, because it easily could going forward, especially with him being in Sonic Shadow Generations, that going amazingly well review-wise and fan-wise and everything-wise. This change of them finding Shadow is really interesting to me because it shows that Gerald didn't make Shadow. Gerald, you know, cared for Shadow seemingly, you know, since Maria cared for him, but he didn't literally make him. And this makes Shadow and Gerald's dynamic really different in this movie. A lot of Gerald in this movie is absurdly different from the Gerald in the games, not making him bad by any means, but making him just different. And I thought he was a very enjoyable character in the film, but not at all how he was in the games, which is probably going to be a bit jarring if you are a Sonic fan and you know this character, or at least the man he once was. So seeing him in this light is kind of strange, to be blunt, but he was very, very compelling as a character, even outside of him being, you know, Eggman's granddad. He was funny. He had a bunch of really great lines. There was a line that I'll talk about later that was, it had me and a friend I went with, our jaws like dropped. We were like, oh my God. Gerald is also real. You know, a major theory that I had going into it, and a lot of people had, is Gerald even real? Is this like gonna be some kind of segment of hallucination for Eggman? Because Eggman, you know, he's kind of crazy at this point. No, Gerald is a real character. He is alive in the movie, and he's, you know, in the world. You know, it's not just some repeated hallucination or something like that. You know, and him being alive is taken with a lot of seriousness. You know, he was in the gun raid. He knows that Maria was killed in the gun raid, and he is very angry about that situation. So Gerald, very compelling character. Jim Carrey acted him very well. You know, similar to Eggman, but different enough to be compelling in his own way while having those Eggman quirks. And obviously, now we're talking about Gerald, let's talk about Eggman and Dr. Stone, who obviously are in this movie and are searching for Shadow as well, because for some reason, whoever Shadow is with might be the one who hacked Eggman's technology. And Eggman says, no, I do not like that. No one's taken away my stuff. And I really enjoyed that motivation. That gets our villain and hero groups together to sort of find out this new villain. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend mentality. That was really cool, but obviously, from all the stuff in the trailer, of course, they're going to betray them immediately. And I really enjoyed a lot of the stuff that happened in this build-up scene to finding Gerald and Shadow. Agent Stone was really interesting in this movie to me. I found him really compelling because he was almost kind of angsty throughout a lot of the movie, which was really cool. It was really dramatic, because the whole thing was about Team Sonic and how they're actually friends and all that. And then Agent Stone's like, to Tails, what is it like being Sonic's assistant? And hearing Tails talk about Sonic the way he talks about him makes him like really kind of sad. He's like, oh yes, the doctor and I, we're friends, but like, he doesn't believe that. So I really enjoyed a lot of Lee Majdoub's amazing performance in this movie. He was really great. He wasn't in it too much, to be completely honest, but everything he did was really good. So I can't wait to see what Agent Stone gets up to in these following films, because I don't know, I really enjoyed the buildup he had with this sort of angsty relationship he had with Eggman, which is really funny because it's almost kind of accentuated with this telenovela in the villain headquarters throughout most of the movie. It was great. That telenovela gag, I loved it. I genuinely ate it up every time it showed up, and a lot of the people in my theater also were just laughing every time they made a reference to it, or sometimes Eggman would even speak Spanish as a reference to it. Something I forgot to mention before we interact with Eggman is that the commander of Gun is meeting up with Sonic to talk about Shadow and his backstory and his connection with Maria, because the commander of Gun actually was there, similar to how the commander of Gun was a kid in the games during the Space Colony arc. However, this commander's a lot older. With the arc incident happening 50 years ago, and this guy being significantly older than 50, he was an adult when all this went down, which makes his connection to it really, really interesting to me. And the Gun Commander is attacked in this scene and entrusts Team Sonic with this key to this ultimate weapon. And thank God it was the Eclipse Cannon, which was really cool. I did not expect it to be there since the arc wasn't there. I'm very happy the Eclipse Cannon was in the movie. It was really cool to see that sort of grand spectacle at the end of Sonic Adventure 2 replicated in some way in this movie without it being too complicated. People can get that point, like, oh, Death Ray, they know what that is. And they're like, oh, big army, military organization has a Death Ray? We gotta stop that. I'm not gonna say it necessarily like trims the fat and makes things like, oh, this didn't need to be there. Like, no. It just splits apart some of the stuff that could have been a bit confusing for non-Sonic fans. Like, oh, okay, if there's a Death Ray, why are people living on the thing with the Death Ray? Like, that is something that a lot of people probably would not want to be around. Why would they want to live on the thing with the Death Ray that could easily, like, blow up or anything horrible like that? Especially in space where no other people live. So instead of doing that, they decided to place Maria, Shadow, and all the Arc Scientists on this mountain-like base, so it is isolated from the rest of the world by being in this very isolated area. And since it doesn't have any seemingly technological, outside, it still gives Maria and Shadow the chance to have that scene of them looking out into the stars, like in Sonic Adventure 2, except instead of looking, at them through a window, they're looking up at them from Earth. And this is kind of interesting because it gets to who Maria is in this movie. They completely remove her disease angle from what I'm aware of, her having neuroimmunodeficiency disorder, which is interesting. A lot of the stuff I think about with Maria is this disease and how, especially now with Sonic Shadow Generations, she is very weak, but she loves that she's able to live this life in the first place. That was kind of just not talked about in this movie, which I kind of felt like was kind of unfortunate, because I really enjoyed the dynamic of Shadow being the ultimate life form and Maria being so, feeble because of her illness, but she was able to matter so much to someone like him. I really enjoyed that sort of thematic, resonating message with their dynamic, that no matter how strong or weak you are, you matter. I really enjoyed that, and I feel like that could have been a powerful thing to include in the movie, but they didn't. And that's not necessarily, a bad thing about the movie, because the movie, like you could probably tell, I really like this movie, but that's just something I kind of wish they discussed. I really enjoyed Maria in this movie. I feel like her connection with Shadow was really cool. I loved them doing a whole bunch of fun stuff. They felt like genuine friends in this movie, and it really goes to show how much Shadow cared about her because of all the happiness that she brought him. And something I do want to bring up, which I thought was really great, is that in the scene of them, staring up at the stars, in that little montage beforehand, we see them watching a rip-off Godzilla movie, and the Godzilla monster is the bio lizard. But then when Shadow says, "Do the Ark scientists think of me like that freak from that movie?" That was perfect. That was perfect, because it was an amazing reference to, both of them being, the ultimate life form or whatever. But it's amazing because it works so well for Sonic fans and, normal people, because they'll see that and be like, "Oh, Godzilla monster thing," but it works. So that amazing scene, I really, really love that. We then learn that the Eclipse Cannon doesn't only need one key to activate, which is the one that they took from the commander of Gun. It also needs a second key, and that just so happens to be in London. Now, we've seen London a lot in the trailers, so this was a really cool way to incorporate multiple big cities into the equation, but we also get that it is Gun's headquarters. And this entire raid on Gun was a really cool action, set piece. We get to see the Doctors do their own thing, Team Sonic, as well as Tom and Maddie, who are now part of the action in their whole thing. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that part of the story. It was a nice little raid section. Tom and Maddie got their fun little spy mission, which had some stuff I really didn't expect. In the billing of the movie, it shows that Rachel and Randall were going to be characters in the movie. No, they were just disguises that Tom and Maddie used to get into Gun, which also implies that Rachel now works for Gun, which is really cool. So I don't know, I like that little subtle world building stuff. Like, yeah, it wasn't technically them, but we did kind of get an update as to what they are doing. You know what I mean? Like, Rachel, I guess, now works for Gun, and I think that's cool. This entire raid on Gun scene, I just really enjoyed. And now I'm going to start getting into the spoiler section of the movie. So for those of you who have not seen it or do not wish to get spoiled, I would highly recommend you stop watching now. Okay? There's a whole scene where the Doctors, Team Sonic, all the people of Gun, they're scrambling for this key. And Tom is luckily able to use Tails' hologram technology to be what he used to disguise himself as Randall, to disguise himself as the commander of Gun. Which, could imply that he is still alive, but personally, I don't really think he is. I feel like that scene was sort of meant to be a death scene, but it is what it is. Tom, disguised as the commander, the same one that attacked Shadow and killed Maria all those years ago, is then confronted by Shadow. And Shadow sees him and is like, "Oh, you're dead." And then he fully charges up his fist. You can see lightning forming in his fist. And he punches Tom so intently, and he is out. Tom is out. And then when he's on the floor, the hologram mask, disguising him as the commander, fades away. And Shadow has this moment of pause. And then Sonic sees what Shadow did to Tom, and Sonic is panicking. He's like, "Oh my God, Tom, don't you be okay?" Stuff like that. And Shadow, when he sees Sonic reacting, in this way to Tom, he only can think about himself, which was amazing. Amazing. Genuinely, really, really, just really powerful. Genuinely. That happens. And then we get some huge baggage. Obviously, Tom, they really try to build up how hurt Tom is. Now, for a second, did I believe that Tom was going to die? No. This is one of the main characters of your series. You're not going to kill him off like that. But if you do, having Shadow be the one to do it, that would have been crazy. But Shadow's not a bad guy, so I didn't think it was going to happen. Sonic is pissed. He's fuming now. And not only that, the Eclipse Cannon is now getting all the way up into space. The Doctors have both the keys, thanks to Shadow taking the one from Tom. The Earth is cooked. They are all going to die if they do not stop the Doctors. And Sonic, previously in the film, Sonic says, "We can't use the Master Emerald. We can't, I can't go supersonic. It's too dangerous." But Sonic says, "Screw that. I'm going to go supersonic. Knuckles, give me the Master Emerald. It's time for me to, stop these guys. I'm fed up." And obviously he's sort of feeding into that anger and that hatred, which is something that Shadow obviously fell into and is still into this many years after it happened. And so Sonic, he takes the Master Emerald, funnily enough, from Wade. It is hilarious. As much as the Knuckles show showed us a bunch of stuff we really didn't need to see. I feel like showing that Wade is protecting the Master Emerald is one of the things we should have seen. Yet that somehow was not in it at all, which is just hysterical to me. Anyway, Sonic becomes supersonic. Boom, launches all the way up into space. And immediately, like without hesitation, he just shoots right through the Eclipse Cannon. He doesn't destroy it by any means. Also, I do want to add real quick, the Eclipse Cannon has this little like thing, like imagine this like a dome. It has a thing that like shoots out, and it has like the Eggman, you know, nose and mustache. That was cool. I'm very happy they were able to include a little like iconography of Eggman, you know, to make it more similar to the Space Colony arc. That was cool. Anyway, Sonic, boom, shoots through the Eclipse Cannon and finds Shadow. Like he like homes in on Shadow, grabs him, takes him all the way back down to Earth, bodies him. Dude, it's so crazy. Every single punch they have is like, oh, boom, you're in the Amazon. Boom, now you're in Egypt. Like, that's how fast that Sonic is beating Shadow to a pulp. But then Shadow is in like, I think they're in like Greece. Shadow, he's like confronting Sonic, like, so you're feeding into that anger, that hatred. You're nothing like me. But obviously he knows, like, this is what I've been feeling for 50 years. All this stuff. And Shadow even says, where are your friends then? If you're not like me, why aren't you with your friends? Because they told you not to come. And then he even's like, especially that one, what's his name again? Tom. And then Sonic destroys this guy. He sends him to a whole other section of the world. It's like pure volcanoes and black land and like death. I don't even know where this is in the world, right? And then Sonic, he loses all the emeralds for just a second, right? The emeralds are right there in the center, and they're both about to grab it. And they both do at the same time. Sorry, that was probably so loud. And they both grab them at the same time. And then Super Shadow and Super Sonic fight across the whole world. And then eventually, Sonic punches Super Shadow to the moon. He punches him so hard that they now start fighting on the moon. That fight went so ridiculously hard. The theater went crazy for that fight. And then they're fighting on the moon. Shadow, he doesn't have enough chaos energy, I guess, right now. And is like, do it. Do it, Sonic. Do it. You know, stuff like that. But Sonic then remembers that scene from the beginning of the movie with Tom telling him to, you know, not linger on those negative feelings. And then Sonic's like, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. Also, I really enjoyed that kind of phrasing that they used a lot throughout the movie. The who I am phrasing. Obviously, kind of like Shadow the Hedgehog, you know. I am all of me. This is who I am. The guy who worked on that game is the guy making this movie. So, I don't know. Every time there's a reference to it, I think it's pretty cool. We then get this gorgeous, gorgeous scene of Sonic and Shadow on the moon talking to one another about, you know, their past. Shadow with Maria, Sonic with Longclaw, his mother. And it was really heartfelt. I really, really enjoyed that scene. And Shadow asks Sonic, like, does it ever feel better? Did you get over your pain? Sonic says no, but you have to remember the positives of what they were. And then Shadow thinks back to this quote that Maria said to him about how stars are able to, you know, shine brightly even after they're gone. And he thinks about Maria, and then at that exact moment, the sun rises over the earth and shines on the both of them on the moon. It was genuinely a really beautiful scene, and it reminded me a lot of the Knuckles Beach scene, obviously, which I loved. That was probably my favorite scene from the last movie. But then it goes even crazier, and instead of just, you know, they see the Eclipse Cannon. They're like, oh, Earth's gonna die. Also, forgot to mention, the Eclipse Cannon, this is why I was kind of mentioning in the previous section, why would people want to live there? The Eclipse Cannon is so powerful that the explosion of the Earth would just explode the Eclipse Cannon as well. So even if they live there, they're gonna die. So I would presume it's like an automatic sort of thing. That's meant to be used for other places, but since it's so close to Earth, you know, it would have been destroyed immediately. And that leads to Eggman and his grandfather having this whole fight. And now I could talk about that amazing line Gerald says. Gerald and Eggman, they talk about their familial connection because obviously, they are family. Eggman talks about how happy he is to have this connection, this family. In response to Eggman saying that they should just live for each other, Gerald says, "You're no Maria." And that floored me when I heard that line, because in a lot of the newer games, specifically Sonic Frontiers, Eggman talks about how he felt very inferior to Maria and how she was seen as the most important one and he was not. Is that possibly why he looked up to his grandfather even more and even tried to mimic him in the way he looks? Who knows? But I thought that scene was crazy. That completely floored me and the friend I was watching with. I'm just gonna, finish this Eggman section because it was good. Eggman and Gerald have this whole fight with sort of nano machine stuff. Really cool, very creative. And Gerald, is about to kill Eggman. And then Tails and Knuckles help Eggman. And Gerald gets cooked. Like I'm not even joking. He evaporates into nothingness because he touches too much of Shadow's chaos energy that's powering the machine. He literally vanishes. Eggman literally says he made a good fly swatter. What? I don't know. Gerald's role in this movie, while being very good, is so jarring to think about, in comparison to who he is in the series. Because in Sonic Shadow Generations, he was so nice and caring. And then, this was obviously before he went crazy, to be fair. But in this movie, he is just so rude and it's so jarring. I do kind of wish we got at least a scene of Gerald before he went crazy. I think that would have been something really interesting to show that the change, who he was and who he is now. And obviously Eggman, he is a bad guy. We at least see him get more crazy. Gerald, he just is, So I would have liked to see that. And more Maria, to be fair. I would have liked to see more of her and Shadow's connection. There's a scene very early in the movie where she starts playing the guitar and it's literally just Live and Learn, the melody of that song. I would have liked to see that scene. Obviously, we don't need to, but I would have liked it. I would have liked more of the past, more baggage for Shadow. It's really that simple. Not saying he wasn't great in this movie. He was fantastic. Keanu absolutely killed it, and there were some moments that were laugh out loud funny, like Shadow talking about in response to the telenovela, she should kill them both. In response to Juan and his brother in the telenovela, it was so funny. And the revenge guac, stuff like that. So good. And of course, in these more emotional scenes with him talking about Maria to Sonic, really great stuff. Back to the moon. Sonic and Shadow are on the moon. They hit the cleanest clap of all time, and they both go super again. And Live and Learn starts playing, and oh my god, the theater went crazy. And then Gerald sending out a bunch of gun robots to try and stop the both of them, and they just start destroying these guys. It's a spectacle. It's truly a spectacle. Then, in the meantime, they literally do the pose with the back-to-back, them crossing in the art of Sonic Adventure 2. Oh my god. There was thunderous applause from the theater for that one. Amazing. Literally, that fight scene, that scene of them destroying the robots, and then they start, blocking the blast from the Eclipse Cannon like they do from the Arc Falling, Sonic Adventure 2. It was different, but it was cool. And since they're kind of, I assumed, absorbing the chaos energy, it made sense to me. I liked it. Sonic, he's a bit too weak. He's not able to handle it anymore. And his friends come to save him. Really cool. But Shadow and Eggman, they're working together to, stop the Eclipse Cannon. Sure, the Eclipse Cannon does slice up half the moon, which is crazy. The moon somehow didn't affect anything, at least at this point. Team Sonic, they're saved, but while Eggman and Shadow are trying to, stop the Eclipse Cannon from falling and destroying the Earth, through a massive explosion, which would have been radioactive, death, essentially, for the entirety of humanity. I'm kind of uncertain what was going to happen, to be blunt. Because the thing explodes, Shadow and Eggman, Eggman has this really cool scene where he's sort of live streaming to Dr. Stone, and he calls him his friend, his Cinca friend instead of his sycophant. I thought that was really cool. I kind of wished it was more like just his friend. My one friend said his family. Oh my god, if Eggman called Dr. Stone his family, I would have lost it. You know, that would have been really emotionally charged right there. But no, it's a cute scene. It's really endearing for the Doctor to finally show Stone how much he cares about him. That was cool. And then Shadow, you know, he's pushing up. He's thinking about Maria. He's thinking about his past. And then they vanish. You know, they vanish. I assumed he used chaos control or something. Since it was powered by chaos energy, maybe it just did it on its own somehow. I think they're being very intentionally vague about what's going on with it, because if they weren't, then it would just be very definitive. And they obviously want to keep this going forever. Sonic Movie 4 has already been confirmed at the time of recording this. It'll be out in 2027. So a lot. But with that, that's, you know, we're getting to the wrap-up section of the movie. Team Sonic sees the explosion in the sky, as well as many other characters, and they get the feeling like, oh, they're gone. You know, obviously, we don't think so. But they think, oh, they're gone, you know? And Sonic feels bad. He thinks about how stars shine even though they're gone. You know, he quotes Maria, which is really cool because that's kind of what he does in Sonic Adventure 2. He says, "Sayonara, Shadow," like what Maria said to Shadow. I really enjoyed that. And then we get a sort of redo of Sonic's B Earth Day party from the beginning. Tom is okay. You know, not that I thought he wouldn't be. But yeah, that's Sonic 3. Really good movie. As you can tell, I've been talking for a while now, and now we're gonna get into the post-credit scenes, because whoa, Metal Sonic is gonna be in the next movie. For those of you who have seen some of my videos before, I thought Metal Sonic could have been a replacement of the Bio-Lizard, and you know, I feel like that's fair. You know, he is a replica of Sonic. Sonic is supposedly the ultimate life form, actually, not Shadow. A lot there, right? Regardless, Metal Sonic, one of my favorite Sonic characters. I am beyond excited for what's to come. Now, here's the twist, right? First off, forget that. Metal Sonic looks amazing. He literally looks perfect. 0 notes. I think they just, lightning in the bottle, they cooked here. He literally looks identical to how he does in the games. Then, here's the twist. There's not one. There's like a bajillion Metal Sonics that just appear at once. Obviously, I haven't been able to rewatch the scene, but my theory is that the one Metal Sonic, you know, the one we know, the main one, that'll be like the leader of this like Terminator-esque robots from the future kind of thing. And I say from the future intentionally, because obviously Metal Sonic is from Sonic CD. The whole game is about the past, the present, and the future. I think that Eggman, instead of being chaos controlled, he is sent forward in time, or forward to Sonic's home planet, something. And then eventually all of these Metal Sonics are coming to attack Sonic, either from the future to the past, or from this other world to here, something. And I bring up the whole time travel thing with chaos control because in Sonic 06, if 2 of them used chaos control at the same time, they could time travel. So that's how I think they're going to wrap all the time travel stuff in. And it makes sense that they did 2 hedgehogs that could go super at the same time using chaos stuff in order to do this. I think that's cool. So, Metal Sonic's here. He has a bunch of Metal Sonic like goons around him. I think they're meant to be a reference to Metal Sonic Mark III, which is like a lesser Metal Sonic that's from another game. That's irrelevant, right? I just think that's cool. I just think they look kind of different. Look like that little yellow highlight like there, to differentiate them from him, you know, the Metal Sonic. Very cool. Then, here's where it gets crazy, because that alone would have been crazy. All of these Metal Sonics then get bodied by Amy. Now, the theater exploded for this one. Like, I thought Metal Sonic was a big reaction. No, there was some people in front of me losing their minds for Amy. And she looked amazing. She looked great as well. The hammer looked a bit futuristic-y as well, you know, sort of playing into my concept of the time travel gimmick for what's to come. You can definitely introduce Silver, like, so easy. Sometime in the future, Sonic will save Amy, because this is a modern Amy adaptation, Amy was classic Amy when Sonic saved her. So let's say it like this. Sonic saves Amy in the future. Future Amy, or Otherworld Amy, whichever, they know that Sonic is the one that is the inspiration for Metal Sonic. And then so she comes to get him to save her world or the future or whatever. Essentially, kind of like Silver's plot, where, oh, Sonic's important. We need to go find him and use him to, defeat whatever is upcoming. Instead of wanting to kill Sonic, though, like Silver, she's going to just ask for his help. That's what I think, because Amy, there's no way she's going to be some damsel in distress. Sega has been completely shifting her character from that since, oh my god, forever now. So there's no way they're going to make her some kind of damsel in this movie. She's going to be awesome, like how she is in the games. And I think her, Sonic, Tails and Knuckles, they're going to absolutely cook all of these Metal Sonics and probably Eggman, because there's no way he's done if Metal Sonic's here. Eggman definitely made that. For the last credit scene, it shows Shadow's alive. Now, not shocked in the slightest, but this makes me think that Shadow is most definitely going to get his own show, or even his own movie. I mean, at this rate, like, Keanu absolutely killed it. He had so many funny moments and emotional moments. Just like Knuckles in movie 2, to me, there's no chance we're not getting more Shadow. I honestly don't know if he's going to be in the next movie, to be honest. I don't know how Shadow would interact with the whole Amy Metal Sonic plotline. Could be cool, but I feel like he would be almost too OP in a way. So I'm hoping we get more of a focus on Amy Metal Sonic in this next movie. Shadow, probably his own show. I think he could have a really great show. So looking forward to that. But with that, that is Sonic Movie 3. This is going to be a really rambly video, as you probably have guessed. So thank you so much. What did you think of the movie? What was your favorite scene? What was your favorite, moment throughout the whole thing? The live and learn scene, that was probably my favorite. I really like the chase scene at the beginning. There's a lot in this movie. I literally, like, halfway through watching the movie, I felt like my soul leave my body, because I was almost like, how is this real? Thinking back, not even 3 years ago, I would have never imagined in my life seeing Sonic Adventure 2 on the big screen. But no, Sonic CD is going to be number 4, which could introduce time travel, which would then mean Silver's probably number 5, because time travel, that just makes sense. And they've already talked about Iblis, so that's probably, I don't know. I am in disbelief how back Sonic is. It was that good. I'm probably going to see it again in theaters. I probably am. My soul left my body watching, and I can't wait to watch it again.